Mutualism is a symbiotic relationship. We already talked about what symbiosis is, that long-term partnership between species. But in this relationship, both organisms get the benefit, right? So here we have a real-life example, right, of mutualism. We have the Nile crocodile and allows the Egyptian plover to enter its open mouth. Why? So the plover benefits by eating small little bits of food that's left on the crocodile's teeth, right? Little scraps. And the crocodile benefits by having its mouth cleaned, and it reduces the risk of infection. So some people have asked, well, why doesn't the alligator, the crocodile here, excuse me, just eat the plover? Could be many reasons. Obviously, it would not get the benefit if it did that. That's really the main reason. Now, perhaps it also just isn't worth it for, like if it started to do that, none of the plovers would trust him. It would never get to eat again. So it would be like one of those things where it's like if somebody's reliably going to give you food or something like that, and then you like say, I hate you, and then they never give you food again, you're like, well, that didn't work out so good, right? So it's just a long-term partnership that they both had. So that's it. And one example of mutualism. Here's another one. I'm going to attach this as a video, and it's about how iguanas and sea lions both get benefited by this little lizard down here. Now, the next one is commensalism. Commensalism is a symbiotic relationship in which one organism benefits, but the other one does not benefit, but it does not get hurt either. It's just totally unaffected by the whole thing. It does not care. So here we have a shark. Now, this shark is out there looking for certain types of food. I believe these are called remoras, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, they're just these little feeder fish. They follow the shark. The shark couldn't care less about those remoras. It's not hurting it in any way. It's not worth it. It's not what it wants to eat. It's not its favorite type of food. Now, so the shark will go over, eat whatever it wants. There'll be little bits left over, and then those other fish will jump over and eat those things, and they'll be able to eat based on the hard work of the shark. Again, doesn't really matter to the shark in that case. Another example of commensalism, groundhogs, also known as woodchucks, are the major hole-digging mammal of North America. So they do a lot of work there, and then they will just abandon those burrows. And then other animals like foxes, opossums, raccoons will see those, and then they'll jump in there and use those for shelter when the groundhog isn't in there. So they get to benefit from it. The groundhog doesn't care because it's not going to use that one anyway. Then we get to parasitism, like a parasite. This is a symbiotic association in which one organism benefits and it's at the expense of the other one. The other one is harmed. So we have a couple different examples here. This one on the bottom left is a freaky one. It's sometimes known as the zombie ant. There's a parasite that grows inside of the brain of the ant and it starts to infect the other ants. The ants will actually take that one, if they know that the one is infected, they'll basically carry that out really far away so it can't get back to the colony, so it can't like spread that virus, which is really crazy. You have this one on the bottom right. This one I love. It's really gross. I'm going to talk you through it. So basically what happens is that snails love to eat bird poop. They just love it. They think it's the best thing. To them, it's like ice cream, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, what happens is that there is a parasite that exists within the bird poop. And that parasite gets into the brain of the slug. And look what it does. It basically makes these little antennas that the slug have look like little caterpillars. A bird will then come down and bite off those heads there, which has the parasite in it. The bird then ingests the parasite. And what happens is that it basically poops out the parasite, and then the parasite goes back into the next generation of these slugs there. So this is obviously the slug is the one that is getting harmed, and the parasite is the one that's winning. Right, and the bird is actually unaffected by all this. It's not really much of a difference that it has the parasite in it because it's not really being impacted that much. Now, I'm going to include this other one over here. This one's an interesting one. This is about cuckoo birds. Maybe you've heard of a cuckoo bird. Now, the cuckoo bird basically mimics other birds. So this example is one, and it's a pretty gruesome one at times. But basically, the cuckoo bird will lay its egg in the nest of another bird, and it will perfectly mimic that other bird. So the other bird will raise it thinking that that's its baby, but it's not. So it doesn't have to do any of the hard work of raising a chick because of that. So I'll let you see the rest of it in that video. Pretty wild stuff. So parasitism, here's a tapeworm. A tapeworm lives in the intestines of animals. So they basically take nutrients away from it and they actually harm the host so that the host doesn't get those nutrients. Humans can get tapeworms, all sorts of animals can get tapeworms, and oftentimes you get these parasites if you eat some food that is undercooked. So you want to make sure certain types of food, like pork, would be one you're more likely to get that in. So just make sure that you thoroughly cook your food. One of the reasons you want to do that. Now, I'm going to show you a couple other examples here. So we're going to go through a whole bunch because I'm going to give you some scenarios in the future, and you're going to have to say that what type it is, like what type of symbiosis it is. So let's go through a bunch of ones for mutualism. So the yucca flowers are pollinated by yucca moths. The moths lay their eggs in the flower where the larvae hatch and then eat some of the developing seeds. So the yucca flowers are helped because they're pollinated and they get to spread their genes, and the moths get to have a safe place and they get to eat as well. So they get shelter and they get a meal, and the other ones get to reproduce. In this one, the honey guide birds, I love these things. They basically say, hey, honey badger. They alert them and say, get over here. There's a beehive down here. The badgers then go in there and they expose the hives and they feed on it. And then afterwards, the honey guide bird goes in there and it will eat the honey. So it's basically saying, I found a meal. I can get to it. I'll give you, if you give me a little finder's fee, you can have it. So that's kind of the way that one works. Another mutualism one. This is an interesting one. You have ostriches and gazelles that are feeding right next to each other. So why is this happening? They're both watching each other's backs, right? The visual abilities are different. So some of them can see ones that are further away. Other ones are just better at detecting the camouflage. So with them working together, they can catch each other. If one starts to bolt, the other one will start to bolt away too, because that means a predator is coming. They can help each other out in that way. The oxpeckers, I love these. Look at these birds that are just hanging out on top of this rhino. Feed on the ticks found on the rhinoceros. The oxpeckers get a meal. The rhinoceros is helped by the removal of the ticks. Who wants ticks? That's a parasite, by the way. So that's a pretty cool one. Now, mutualism, you have these wrasse fish. They feed on the parasites that are found on the black sea bass's body. They get a meal, and then the other one gets the parasites removed. That's a pretty common one. We have the commensalism. I already talked about this one, the remoras that attach themselves to the shark body that get the leftover scraps. Shark isn't impacted. Here we have the stork uses its saw-like bill. It can cut up dead animals that it eats. It just cuts them right up. And then other types of animals can then go inside of that dead animal carcass to get some food or to lay their eggs. So the bees are taking advantage of that, and it doesn't matter at all to the stork because it already got what it wanted. Barnacles are an interesting one. They look like they're a parasite, but really they're not taking anything away from the whale. They're just kind of like hatching a free ride on the whale. So the whale, although it doesn't look real, I'm sure I don't know if, I don't think it's impacting their, let's say, mating habits. I don't think that a female whale is looking at the whale with its barnacles and like, that's gross. I'm going to pick somebody else. Probably because maybe they both wind up getting them. Either way, it doesn't seem to impact the whales in any meaningful way. So it's not a big deal to them. Hermit crabs live in shells that are abandoned by snails. So the snails don't care. They outgrew that shell. They left it behind. And the hermit crab says, this is perfect. I'll use this one as my home. That's commensalism. This one's interesting. As bison or other really large predators like elephants walk through the tall grass, the bugs that are inside of the grass get freaked out and they jump up out of the sky to basically not get trampled because they were disturbed. Now, the bison or the elephant or whatever creature doesn't care about those bugs. It's not eating bugs, so it just keeps on going through. But these other birds will follow these huge creatures, and as soon as those bugs jump up because they're freaked out, they zoom in, eat them, and then they get to eat, and the bison doesn't even know what's going on. In this one, you have an orchid growing inside of another type of plant. The orchid is taking water and nutrients from it, but that's really it, and there's plenty of it to go around. So in this case, it's not really acting like a parasites in that case, but it's close. And this one, you might argue that it's like getting close to being a parasite. If the other one was starting to die, that would not help in that case, right? I like this one here too. A sparrow. I don't know if you can see right here. Here's a big nest right there, and look at these ospreys that are right there that are above. The sparrow nest is way down over here. So whereas maybe other types of creatures would mess with that nest, they're not going to mess with these big birds here. So these ones don't care, but they're inadvertently protecting the smaller birds there. Then we have parasites. So mistletoe would be considered a parasite. I know maybe you've heard of people kissing underneath the mistletoe. Well, it actually extracts water and nutrients from a spruce tree. The spruce tree is harmed in this case. So that's why mistletoe is considered to be a parasite. We already talked about the cuckoo. Here's a flea that's feeding on certain types of mammals. In this case, it is a mouse. We have deer ticks. You've learned about deer ticks in health. I'm pretty sure how they can get Lyme disease, but really they're feeding on the blood and they harm the deer. And then certain types of dogs can get something called heartworms. Really, really sad if that were to happen. That could be from eating, food that they shouldn't be eating, which dogs can tend to do. And it can actually start to grow certain types of worms inside the heart. Really gross if that's the case. This is a tough one. A wasp lays its eggs on a caterpillar. When the wasp eggs hatch, the larvae just eat the caterpillar and kill it. Poor caterpillar doesn't know what's going on. So all of these are different examples, gave you lots of different ones right there, but you could see the common themes, right? Parasitism has to do with one getting harmed, the other one benefiting. Commensalism means that one is benefiting, but the other one doesn't care, and the other one both benefit. In every single case, at least one is benefiting.